Hello everyone, this time we'll talk about British history. The United Kingdom is located in British Isles. It is made up of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Thousands of years ago, the Isles were inhabited by pre-Celtic people known as Iberians. Little is known about them, but it is said some monuments built by them, such as mysterious Stonehenge. The massive stones were transformed from about 150 miles away, which shocked people today. It is a World Heritage Site and the best-known prehistoric monument in Europe. Over time, waves of Celtic-speaking people arrived in the European continent, who soon came to form Britons, Gales, and Picts in the Isles. These people were not unified, and they built many tribes. They shared similar religion, language, and culture. From 54th to the 5th century, the Romans invaded England and Wales, but failed to conquer the Pictish tribes at north. The British defenders retreated from Hadrian's Wall. Soon after the Romans left, there was a great migration of Germanic tribes. They were Jutes, Angles, and Saxons. Their settlement in England drove the Britons to Wales and other mountainous areas. The Anglo-Saxons were living in tribes governed by a chief or king. Their social union was not determined by kinship, but rather by the village. In the 8th century, the whole Britain was under control of 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. From the 8th century, the Anglo-Saxons had to face Scandinavian invaders, Vikings, who came across the North Sea and occupied parts of Britain, just as the Anglo-Saxons had done 400 years earlier. The Danish invasion continued till the 11th century, when they were defeated at sea by Alfred the Great, King of Wessex and the founder of the British Navy. Alfred the Great was noted for resisting the Vikings and uniting the 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms under one rule. Alfred is the only English king to be labeled the Great. In 1066, King Edward the Confessor died without an heir. After his death, there was a succession dispute between 4 claimants. Harold was crowned king. However, Duke William of Normandy crossed the English Channel with a strong army to challenge Harold's succession. William and his army killed Harold at the Battle of Hastings. On Christmas Day, 1066, William was crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey. Generally, he is often referred to as William the Conqueror. The Norman conquest marked the establishment of feudalism in England. After William's death, his great-grandson Henry II ascended the throne and thus began the House of Plantagenet. Henry II married a French wife and built up a large empire, including England and over half of France. He is best remembered for his reform of the courts and the laws. King John imposed heavy taxes on his barons in order to pay his expensive wars with France. The barons rebelled and forced him to sign the Magna Carta, or the Great Charter. It set up a principle that everyone would accept the law, even the king. It guaranteed the rights of individuals, the right of justice, and so on. Magna Carta is regarded as the foundation of the British constitutionalism. When King of France died in 1328, the King of England, Edward III, held claim to the throne. But another claimant, Philip VI, gained the throne at last. In 1337, Edward III renewed his claim to the French throne, and the 100 Years' War broke out. At first, the war went in England's favor. The English bows and arrows played an important role in the war. But the French heroine, Joan d'Arc, lifted the French spirit. Together with the use of guns and gunpowder in the war, the French turned the tide of the war. Consequently, the British feudal system declined. Upon the death of Edward III, the throne was claimed by several claimants, most noticeably the House of York and the House of Lancaster. Both houses battled for power, wealth, and ultimately the throne. This is the famous Wars of the Roses. The war lasted for 30 years and ended with the win of the House of Lancaster. Their leader, Henry Tudor, became the king, and the Tudor dynasty began. Henry VIII, the second king of the Tudor dynasty, is remembered not only for his 6 wives, but also for his reformation for religion. He wanted to divorce his first wife. At that time, the only person could a divorce was the Pope. Yet the Pope would never allow him to do so. Thus, Henry VIII started the Reformation by declaring a break with Rome. And Henry VIII made himself the supreme head of the Church of England. The Reformation continued to his daughter Elizabeth's reign. During the 16th century, the largest and the most powerful empire was Spain. Its king is Philip II. England under Queen Elizabeth I helped the rebels reject Spanish rule. Many English ships intercepted Spanish sailors on the journey back for the New World. In 1588, the English Navy scored a great victory over the Spanish invasion fleet and showed England's strength as a naval power. From then on, British Navy replaced Spain as the most powerful one and explored all over the world. Born in this period, William Shakespeare became a poet and the greatest playwright who contributed to the English literature. The Elizabethan age saw the flourishing in literature, foreign trade, exploration, and so on. It is regarded as a golden age in British history. In the early 17th century, the clashes between Charles I and the Parliament got to rise. The king dissolved Parliament in 1629. The conflicts led to the English Civil War. The country became divided between the parliamentarians, known as the Roundhead, and the royalists, known as the Cavaliers. Under Oliver Cromwell and the New Model Army, the parliamentarians defeated Charles and killed him. In 1651, Cromwell dissolved the monarchy and declared England as a commonwealth. He became the head of it. In 1660, Parliament restored Charles II and put an end of commonwealths. In 1685, James II became the King of England, who was ready to re-establish the Catholicism. James' daughter, Mary, and her Dutch husband, William, were both Protestants. Then a group of Protestant statesmen invited them to rule England. William landed in England, and the takeover was smooth and with no bloodshed. This was known as the Glorious Revolution. In 1689, Parliament passed the Bill of Rights, which limited the power of the monarch and guaranteed the authority of Parliament. It removed the ruling monarch and established constitutional monarchy. Victoria became King of England in 1837. In 1840, he married Prince Albert. She arranged the marriages for her children and grandchildren across the continent, tying Europe together. This earned her a nickname, the Grandmother of Europe. Queen Victoria encouraged the further Industrial Revolution, the building of railways, and the growth of trade and commerce. During Victoria's reign, she took the title of Empress of India. The British government waged the Opium War against China and forced the Qing dynasty to sign the Treaty of Nanking. Meanwhile, Britain occupied other countries over the world. In Victorian age, Britain became the largest colonial empire and the strongest power in the world. It controlled about a quarter of the world's landmass. Britain became a major player in the First World War. Many men proudly joined the army to protect their country. The war got first use of many new weapons. Many saw the cruelty of the war and were unwilling to fight. Millions died, and many returned home with injury. The cost of the war was great. Britain lost its position of leading shipping nation and entered an era of social change, economic recession, and a large scale of unemployment. World War II was a continuation of World War I. Hitler aroused strong nationalism and racism in Germany and started an ambitious plan of conquering Europe. In a series of battles, Germany gained control of most of Europe by 1941. Under Prime Minister Churchill, Britain fought back. With the unified efforts of anti-Nazi forces, Germany surrendered in 1945. Britain suffered far fewer casualties than in the First World War, but it still lost 1/4 of its national wealth and entered upon a period of economic and financial difficulties. In the 1970s, inflation and unemployment soared and endless strikes resulted from labor unrest. In the 1980s, Mrs. Thatcher's iron policy led one of the most remarkable periods in the British economy. However, her re-establishing the special relationship with the United States affected the later prime ministers, especially Tony Blair. Under the Blair government, the stronger relationship with the United States damaged Britain's relationship with Europe and raised questions about the wisdom of special relationship. In the 21st century, Britain suffered a depression in 2008, but recovered soon. Now it is a member of NATO, United Nations, and the WTO. It is a nation with no glory of British Empire anymore. This is the end of the lecture. Next time, more attractive facts can show you a different British history. See you.